Welcome to Gems and Java Home Edition 2021. We are so excited to share this wonderful show with you today. We've got stories to share from volunteers and from partners in Ethiopia and from some incredible people about why they give to this work. We know you will walk away touched by what you see and hear about the power of these projects. We are celebrating an astounding 10 years, an entire decade since this organization was created. We know you are going to be just as thrilled as we are when you take a deeper dive into the 7 projects that we fund. So this year, we are showcasing so many people, both here and across the world, who have a heart for Ethiopia, and that's our theme, Hearts for Ethiopia. We really get to see the changes driven by these 7 projects play out in real time. Young women are building skills and confidence and avoiding dropping out of school. Instead, they're learning to dream. Families have food to put on the table. Boys who have lived on the street are healing and finding home once again with their families. Women are accessing life-changing medical care. They're finding jobs, they're going back to school. There are so many examples like this, but the truth is the needs are growing. If what you hear over the next hour impacts you, please consider making a donation on our website. You'll have the chance to invest in the lives of women and children. We'd also like to invite you to take a look at our online auction. It opens October 28 at 8 a.m., which is full of awesome items that could help you get a head start on your holiday shopping or make it just a perfect treat for yourself, whatever. It closes on November 1st at 8 p.m., so do not miss this. The link for the auction is available on our website and our social media pages, of course. So thank you so much for joining us. Whether you're hosting a party at your home or joining us from your laptop and your comfy clothes, we're so pleased to celebrate this milestone with you and to enjoy this year's Gems and Java Home Edition.
Your fellow man, lend him a helping hand, put a little love in your heart. You see it's getting late, oh please don't hesitate, put a little love in your heart, and the world will be a better place, and the world will be a better place for you. Just wait and see. Another day goes by and still the children cry. Put a little love in your heart. If you want the world to know we won't let hatred grow, put a little love in your heart, and the world will be a better place, and the world will be a better place for you and me. Just wait, wait and see. Take a good look around, and if you're looking down, put a little love in your heart. I hope when you decide kindness will be your guide, put a little love in your heart, and the world will be a better place, and the world will be a better place for you and me. Just wait, wait and see.
The Girls Gotta Run program wraps its arms around a group of athletic scholars, teaching confidence and life lessons and teamwork, all through the sport of running. This 3-year scholarship program makes it possible for young women to continue their education, giving them hope for the future and inspiring all sorts of career aspirations. The goal is to target an age group where the pressures of full-time work or even early marriage are foisted upon young women. Instead, Girls Gotta Run gives them the tools and support to lean into their education and to stay in school. So whether it's school or running uniforms, healthy snacks after practice, or the relief of just knowing that their tuition funding is secure, this program helps to prove to a group of vulnerable young women that people in Canada value them and value their future, and that someone has their back.
I became a monthly sponsor for Girls Gotta Run when I began to learn a little bit more about the program, and it wasn't just about athletic or sports in terms of the girls coming in for the actual running and that. There was a huge element of education there, but beyond the education, there was also this life skills training that they provided for the girls. That life skills training would actually provide them the opportunity to be able to move forward to the secondary level of education, which I thought was really impressive that they tried to bridge the girls into secondary level of education. And in Ethiopia, with such a small percentage of girls that move on to secondary school, it was really impressive to hear a program that provided that bridge for them. As a sponsor for Girls Gotta Run, I feel that it's absolutely critical that this particular program offers education opportunities not only to the girl that I sponsor, but there's a ripple effect that girl will hopefully go on to further education, and that her children will have that opportunity to be educated as well within Ethiopia. In a country with such poor literacy rates, especially for girls, it really warms my heart to know that that ripple effect will carry on within that family and within that community.
ሴት ልጅ እኩል ናት በሚለው አስተሳሰብ እጃለሁ። ምክንያቱም ሴት ልጅ ከወንድ በምንም ነገር እንደማታንስ
ስለተማርሽ።
There's no better way to capture our theme, Hearts for Ethiopia, than by sharing the story of the girls empowered through soccer program. You're going to hear about the role soccer can play in building relationships and community, which is exactly what's happening in Harar, a city in eastern Ethiopia. We provide the funding for 2 girls soccer teams, including uniforms, supplies, healthy snacks, holiday meals, and stipends for the 4 dedicated coaches that have become like family to their players. And boy, are these young athletes special. They leave it all on the field. The soccer teams have also highlighted other needs among the players and their families, and we've now expanded to include food support for several soccer families that were struggling significantly and couldn't afford to feed their kids.
We support the Girls Gotta Run and the Girls Empowered Through Soccer programs. I think it's really, really important for young women to have that confidence and that sense of community that sport brings. And also, I believe it also changes the community's perception of women. So especially in a country like Ethiopia, where soccer and running are so important and such a status symbol, having the community view these women that may be viewed by the community as people that are not of status. So having them take part in a culturally important event like soccer and like sport increases their status and increases their confidence and increases their sense of community. And I think that's really, really important for women going forward to become leaders in their community. But I also think it's important for men to see them in those roles as well. So it also changes their perception of women.
I agree, Mom. And I think too that soccer is a particularly great unifier because of the team aspect of it. So with the soccer program, girls are able to build community with themselves, but be a part of the community, and the community as a whole can come out and support them. And I recently read today that actually in Canada, the men's and women's national elite soccer leagues are renegotiating contracts to promote gender equality. And I was thinking about this and the girls soccer program, and how the girls in the girls soccer program in Ethiopia said that the boys came out to watch them and that made them feel equal. And it made me tear up a little bit. I was so excited about the idea that this is a sport that worldwide is promoting gender equality. And it doesn't matter if you're a 10-year-old Ethiopian girl or a 25-year-old elite soccer player. You can feel like part of the community. You can make a difference. You can pay your way through school. You can do all these amazing things because the empowerment of sport really brings people together and helps them build communities.
I love running. I love soccer, and I think there's some kind of connection there when we can share that sport, even though like we're thousands and thousands of kilometers away. I like even in Canada, like women and girls taking part in sport, they're gaining the same benefits that women and girls are doing in Ethiopia as well. So I think that shared experience kind of brings the Mothers with a Heart stories a little bit closer and a little bit real for me. You know, if I ever did get the chance to go to Ethiopia, it was something that we could connect over, and yeah, the benefit of sport and that sense of community and that sense of team and that sense of leadership is all something that I think is really, really important to promote within women, within all people, but particularly in women in areas where that may not have been encouraged in the past.
One of the things I've really learned about our Girls Empowered Through Soccer program is that you can kind of see how soccer becomes the great equalizer for these young women. They're all from different backgrounds, you know, different income levels, and the girls that are really struggling, they come to the team and they get to act and feel and be just as much a member of that team as anybody else. They all have the same uniforms that's provided through the program. You know, if they're struggling at home with food insecurity or even having enough money to buy soap, that was a reality for some of the girls, that's provided through this program. So they can come to the soccer team, they can come to practice, they enjoy healthy snacks and meals on special occasions with their team, and they get to feel just like one of the girls, right? They fit in, they build their confidence and build friendships there. And even crossing over economic lines, you know, meeting young women that they may not have had the chance to build such key and core friendships with if they weren't involved in this soccer team. And we heard that from one of the coaches, Coach Sarah, who said, you know, before soccer, these girls felt different. They felt like they stood out. But once they came to the soccer team, once they were provided with all of the pieces through that team, they were just able to let loose and have fun. And it was so, so wonderful to hear that. Coach Sarah is one of 4 coaches, and you can really see the incredible difference that those coaches are making in these girls' lives and in the lives of their families as well. So when we were there, we were hoping to provide some food for a couple of the families that were really struggling. And we found out that these coaches had been doing it all along. You know, they did not come from means, they did not have very much money themselves, and yet they were providing food for families that were struggling because they knew that it was needed. And in some cases, these coaches were even having the girls whose families were struggling the most over to their own homes for meals. They were feeding them, providing that compassion and, you know, sharing friendship and sharing a meal around the table just because they knew it was needed. And I just think it's such a perfect example of, you know, providing the funds for people who are already doing the work on the ground, right? Those coaches knew exactly what type of food the families would want to eat. They knew how to deliver it in an appropriate way. They knew how to handle all of this sensitively and, you know, culturally in a way that made sense and felt great for those families as well. And it was just incredible to see, you know, that before we even showed up, these coaches were doing that despite really not having the means to do it themselves.
I'm in Ethiopia today, and I've spent some time with the girls in our Girls Empowered Through Soccer project. And we've been talking about how much this project means to them. Not only are they learning the sport of soccer, but they're also learning how to get along with one another. They've all talked about the importance of the friendships that they've developed and the love that they have. They love their coaches. The coaches show them such love and care. They help them problem solve. They help them in every aspect of their lives. And it's building confidence, and we love that in girls. We want to see them be all that they can be.
Yeah, this is really very important for girls because especially in Harar, this team, after this team came, a lot of girls came out and play soccer, soccer ball. And this is, of course, this is used, or this is important for girls about, for they build themselves by, they build their confidence. I have a dream, these girls, maybe after 2-3 years, they will become a best soccer player. After 5 years, maybe they will represent Harar. After 6-7 years, I hope I will see them on the national team.
Children who have known immense pain, fear, and trauma living on the street have a second chance thanks to Basayu. They get to be kids again. This incredible program, named after one of its directors, a man who lived on the street himself, helps to shelter, teach, and love and rehabilitate children who would otherwise have no home. We even developed a special knitting program, making the cutest little knitted bears, which was named after this program. You're going to hear from one of our volunteers who's played a huge role in making bears for Basayu, and just how much those little teddies can find their way into your heart. You'll also hear a really powerful story from our founder, Shelley Green, highlighting just how deeply the Basayu leaders care about the children in need.
From the first time I met Marcella and Basayu, I could see and feel their genuine love, commitment, and drive for the children, not only in their care, but also the other children who were living on the streets in Soto. Marcella is from Italy and has served children living on the streets in other countries around the world. She has been living and working in Ethiopia for many years. Basayu lived on the streets himself as a youth and knows all too well the vulnerability of the children and the extreme challenges and suffering that goes along with living on the streets. Visiting the Basayu campus, spending time with Marcella, Basayu, the other staff, and the children is always one of the highlights of my trips to Ethiopia. Basayu is a place of safety, of security, and one that allows children to learn, be fed, provided for, sheltered, cared for, and loved in a very intentional way that allows them to be reunified with family members. Marcella and Basayu work tirelessly to not only provide for the children, but to also work to find family members of the children, and then work with those family members to make it possible to welcome that child into their home. In some cases, a roof of the home needs repair. In some cases, the family may need support in helping them generate enough income to be able to afford to provide for the child. Basayu has an 85% success rate in reunifying the children with family members. That success rate is remarkable and is only one of the many reasons why I am absolutely impressed and so inspired by this organization. The children in their care all come with different experiences, different stories, but they all come with a need to be cared for, to be shown love, and to be given a hope for the future. Marcella and Basayu respond with love and care for children who have faced unbelievable trauma, and they have shared some of those stories with me over the years. The extent of their work, the lengths they go to serve children in need is heroic, simply heroic. We arrived to the Basayu campus late at night in October 2019. Marcella and Basayu met me soon after we arrived, and they told me that a 13-year-old in their care was dying with cancer. I will never forget how Basayu and Marcella made it their priority to provide a compassionate and dignified death and ensure this child felt wrapped in love and care in her final days. Let me share with you what Marcella has written about Amarch. Here's the story of a wonderful girl, a girl named Amarch. Basayu found her in a village in a hut with an unbelievably swollen knee. Her parents couldn't say how long she had been like that. Maybe a year, they said. Basayu immediately asked to bring her to our campus, where we washed her, dressed her, and then took her to the hospital. We learned she had cancer and her leg was amputated. And then Amarch blossomed. She regained her appetite. She was better. She became an angel, a girl who was always smiling, cheerful, who wanted to study. She was physically tiny, but she had enormous strength of mind. I always told her that even without a leg, she could become the head of the world, and she wanted to become president of her kabale, her constituency. She learned to move with crutches, and all the children helped her with all her needs. We agreed with a center 2 hours from Soto for an artificial leg. The day we went to pick it up, she was bursting with happiness, as if we were giving her not a wooden leg, but the whole world. It was August. She took her first steps with her new prosthesis and lit up. She said, "Now that I can walk, I can go to school in October." The physiotherapist explained what exercises she had to do for the stump that supported her leg. She worked hard. She exercised every day and sometimes even at night. When she moved among the children with her wooden leg and her radiant smile, she was the personification of hope. One day, Amarch had a shoulder pain. I thought she must have trained too much. I immediately called Medina, the farmer who was also a bone picker, and he gave her a nice massage. Everything seemed to improve. But after a few days, I found her in a sweat bath, and after another week, she could no longer lift her arm, then not move it. We took her back to the hospital, and there they explained she was full of cancer. She had great pain, but she never complained. She cried silently. Amarch died 5 days after this last diagnosis. In those 5 days, she never gave up. We found morphine to alleviate her suffering a little. She understood that she was dying, and with her eyes, she looked at the books and motioned me to speak and read, even though she did not understand. Every little wish she made, Basayu ran to fulfill it, but he couldn't do it with her biggest wish, to go to school. In Ethiopia, funerals are almost more challenging than weddings, with gatherings that last more than a week. For the funeral, families go into debt by tradition. They have to build a tent and feed all those who participate, and everyone must attend because otherwise they will be alone at their own funeral. At first I was struggling. I said to myself, you have seen a person 3 times in your life and you have to dedicate a week to their funeral? But then I realized that the funeral rite is of vital importance in the Ethiopian culture. This is an important opportunity for the community to get information, to maintain contacts, to circulate news in villages where often neither drinking water nor TV are available. Amarch's family did nothing for her. We organized the funeral, we set up a tent like those of the army, and offered everyone something to eat. Those who come also bring something, even just a small pile of peanuts. For a week we stayed there, talking about her even though many did not know who she was. But the kids on campus did, and they wanted to tell about Amarch at the funeral. So we rented a bus. At the funeral, each child got up and said something about Amarch. Amarch loved playing cards. Amarch laughed. Amarch went on crutches. Amarch held the babies in her arms and fed them, washed them in the basin, changed them. Everyone remembered her. We built a tomb and put her photo on it. Now everyone who passes remembers her smile. Amarch has left her joy and a very powerful energy. She was full of light and she believed in life, in people. She knew how to rely totally on others. She knew how to be grateful. She was a comet. She went by fast, but she enlightened us all, and she watches over us. When I think of her, I smile. What a beautiful tribute to Amarch from Marcella. When our volunteers were staying at Basayu, Marcella asked if she could have one of the stuffed bears our volunteers make for Amarch. Marcella also invited us to come and visit Amarch. When I entered her room, there was a staff person sitting right beside her, stroking her, and the stuffed bear was very close to her. She was obviously in pain. I left her room with so many emotions. Thankful she had the loving care of Marcella and Basayu, their staff, and the children. Thankful she did not die without any medication for pain as she would have in her village. She would have died an excruciating death. Thankful that she knew she mattered, that she was valued, and that she was loved. I was also sad for her, for the suffering she had been through at the age of 13, for her lost dreams of education and a life, and for the pain I knew Marcella and Basayu were going through. I was thinking of how, if Amarch lived in Canada, that her knee would have been looked at by a doctor a long time before it was, and that with treatment, she most likely would have had an entirely different experience and outcome for her life. My heart ached with the inequity of our world, inequity that resulted in a precious girl, Amarch, not being treated medically until Basayu found her one day and brought her to the safety and care of the Basayu program. Basayu and Marcella shared with me through tears that Amarch had died. Marcella told me what they did to honor her in death, and one thing I will never forget is that she placed the knitted bear we had given her under a March's head as a pillow in the coffin.
There were, I'm trying to think, I think there were 8 of us that went to Ethiopia just after Mothers had started. I went with a little bit of fear and trepidation of never having gone to a country like that. But it is one of the highlights of my life. To say that it went smoothly and it was a lot of fun is not what I would say about it. It was a lot of hard work. It was gut-wrenching. It was heartbreaking. Totally out of your element. Seeing how people lived, seeing how children lived, it does something to you. You're never the same after. It breaks your heart, but it warms your heart to know that you're doing something to help these precious little ones. And to be able to look into their eyes. And let me tell you, to this day, I can still look off and see, literally see the eyes of some of these children. They spoke directly to my heart. It's just like it pierced your heart. It's something I'll never, ever forget. The second project that we did was the bears that were knit for the children. And that was so special because you saw the joy in their faces. And it was something they could hold on to and hold. And they don't have anything to hold on and hold. They barely have enough to wear, let alone having toys. And so that was really important, a really, really important thing to me. And Julia's mom, just one thing I will shared with us because we had worked on the bears, was of a little boy who was dying in the hospital. And they went and gave him a bear. And she said to see that child just hold that bear, she said, it just broke your heart. But she said to know that he had that to hold on to when he passed away. So because I've seen the children, you've seen their faces, to know that they've had something they can hang on to is also a really, really important project to me as well. I have certainly talked to many people about Mothers with a Heart for Ethiopia, and it's a heart thing. It's not just words. It's what you feel in your heart and what you feel that you're doing for these women and for these children. And when you see the need and see what they live with on a day-to-day basis, I have never in my life seen the joy of people like the women in Ethiopia, when you felt you were doing so very little for them, and yet to see the joy and the happiness, they would come and hug you. They didn't want you to go, and they just thanked you and praised God the whole time for what you were doing for them. It was just totally inspiring. I do a monthly donation because I know that I'm helping one specific girl. And for me, I can't make a difference for everybody. I can't do that. I can't financially do that, but I can make a difference in one girl's life. And for me, you can't look at a project as being so overwhelming that you feel you're not making a difference. When you're dealing with one, even though I contribute to other parts of the organization as well, I still know this one thing and where it's going, and that there's one girl that's going to benefit from that, and that she's going to do great things someday in her country. So that for me is, I don't look at it as a big project. I look at it as that one person.
The group home is one of our oldest projects, providing a safe, stable, and loving home for a group of boys who have now grown into young men. This is such a special place where a true family was created. All the boys go to school from elementary and secondary all the way into college and even a master's program. But the boys in the group home Mom Mulu don't just have the basic necessities like food, clothing, and school books. They have support and connection and a sense of home. And that loving environment has fostered a deep desire for them to give back. The young men volunteer in their communities and even accompany us on trips as we visit the projects in Ethiopia, helping to translate and observing all the wonderful work done across the country. We're so lucky to be able to share some thoughts from one of the group home sponsors whose investment makes this environment and future possible for Yabsera.
I've supported Yabi in the group home since he came to the group home, and the reason that I did that was because I know the money goes right to him. It was taking him off the street, it was putting him in a wonderful home with a family, with other boys who are men now, but him growing up in a wonderful place and having schooling and food on the table and just giving him a future because he didn't have one before, and yeah, that makes me feel amazing. Just seeing him grow into like this tall, handsome young man, that's the difference that I see. And his mom, Mulu, like just the wonderful place that they live in. They had the dog, like it was just like a family, right? Knowing that he has that is something extra special to have. When I come home to Canada, I just can't believe the difference in what we have compared to what they have, and how grateful they are for everything that they have, and how little it takes to make somebody's life different and give a person hope. And Mothers with a Heart for Ethiopia does that for so many different groups, and it's coming home, and it's just a different reality when you come home and you haven't appreciated what you have, and then when you've been over there for 3 weeks, it's amazing because there's so much need there. Like you walk down the street and there's so many people that you want to help, and you can't help everybody, but by giving to Mothers with a Heart, you are helping people. You know that they're getting the money or the help or the food or the education. So it's just makes you feel happy and that you're doing something wonderful for your heart.
I said my sponsors very thank you because you're doing for me many things. And the Canada people, I love you very much.
The RAPS project is a triple whammy. It keeps young women in school by providing them with convenient and hygienic products to use while they have their periods. It also employs more than a dozen women who make these washable, reusable, affordable pads. The education and the employment driven by RAPS projects also trickles down to younger siblings, even entire families and communities. The RAPS kits come with reusable pads, a wet bag to keep used products, and a pair of underwear. And they're designed to be hardy and easy to use for those young women.
One of the most special experiences that I carry with me from being in Ethiopia was having the chance to sit in the back of a classroom and watch young women receive a presentation about washable, reusable, affordable pads. That's our RAPS project. We love that project, and the young women do too. They are so excited to get these kits. Lots of screaming, cheering, and showing each other their pads kits. And we love that project because it really provides the opportunity for these young women to stay in school when they have their period. The alternative is really staying at home if they don't have the proper products, and that's the case for so many young women. Either they're not available in their area or they're much too expensive to be purchasing any sort of menstrual products, and instead they're using things like dirty rags, leaves, other products that are easily accessible but not very hygienic. And it's amazing to talk to these young women. They share with us about how excited the entire family or community is sometimes about these kits. So they said to us, don't worry, we learned all about hygiene. We're not sharing these with other people, but it's really a novelty item. They're so excited about it. And it's really important for these women to be going to school, having the chance to continue their education and, launch careers. The reality is that when girls are staying home from school, up to a week every single month, they're falling behind, and in some cases they're dropping out of school. There's a much higher chance of early marriage, child marriage even. And so it's really wonderful to see the difference these kits are making. Of course, it also provides employment for more than a dozen women. Those are full-time jobs they're creating, they're sewing these reusable pads, and they're also getting the chance to go back to school, sometimes starting even as early as grade 2, picking up where they would have left off. And so it's kind of a win-win. These young women are getting period products, and the women who are making them are having the chance to go back to school and realize their educational dreams as well.
It's really fun to watch your kids, your students graduate from college. It's really fun to get to watch a worker read when they came to you and they couldn't read at all. And so you watch and you see the ripple effect of helping. It doesn't take a lot to change the lives of people. It takes so little. And when you think about spending a little bit of money on education and how that education ripples down into the lives of not just that person, but that entire family. I guess that's why, I'm sorry, this is just so dear to my heart, because I know that it's just a small hand up can change somebody's life.
Okay, so we want to encourage you to stay in school. And that's why we're here to talk about your menstrual period. One thing we know from all of our research is that many of you don't go to school when you have your menstrual period. And if you miss school for 2 days, 3 days, pretty soon, you missed a year of school. We want to help you stay in school. We want to help you get to university. All right, so why do we have a menstrual period?
Another project in Soto that's connected to the Carnes family is the Prolapse Uterus Fund. Your investments have helped hundreds of women access medical treatment to correct a prolapse uterus, a condition that often causes shame, pain, and a pungent odor. We hear so many stories of the deep isolation women suffer, often without even knowing what's happening to their bodies. But we hear even more tales of transformation and the dramatic change this surgery has created. Doctors Mark Carnes and Nate Ross are performing these life-changing surgeries and mentoring the next generation of doctors at the same time. There are so many caring medical professionals, from nurses to technicians to the staff of the rural health clinics, who are committed to helping women find solutions and restoring their dignity and joy at the same time.
I think once you learn about the Prolapse Surgery Project, you really can't get it out of your head. That's been the case for me since my very first trip to Ethiopia. Having the opportunity to sit down with a number of women who had experienced that condition and experienced it for years, sometimes years and years and years, without any sort of medical treatment. And these women, they were so open with us, they were so willing to get vulnerable and really share the pain of that time. It was incredible to hear all that they had been through experiencing this condition and often not even knowing what it was. They didn't know what was wrong, but they knew that something was very wrong. They were isolating themselves. In some cases it led to the breakdown of their marriages, even their families. They were being shunned by their friends, even their husbands. And, hearing the pain and seeing that emotion, all over their faces. Of course, these stories are being translated, but that raw human emotion, you just can't forget. It was so painful for these women, and Luckily, they were able to talk about how their lives had changed after surgery as well. And without fail, every single woman said some version of, how their life had been changed. One woman said she felt she had been given new life. Another woman, one of my favorites, said she felt like a baby. Her life was brand new. She was gonna live life all over again now that she had had this surgery. It's, restoring health and restoring dignity, but it's really giving them a second shot at life. And one of the most impactful stories that I heard from a woman who had had a surgery to correct a prolapsed uterus, she was talking about how she felt so inspired to share this news and share the reality of, the available medical care with everyone she knew. This is a really, a private health concern that a lot of women kept close to them, never sharing it even with their families. But this woman said, I'm gonna tell everyone I know. I'm gonna talk about it at church, I'm gonna talk about it at the market. I want everyone to know, the life-changing power of this medical care that's available to them.
When I think of the prolapsed uterus surgery program and being a donor of that program, the stories that really touched me are kind of my first experience with Mothers with a Heart for Ethiopia. So at my first Gems in Java event, Shelley Green came up and was speaking about the prolapsed uterus surgery. And I'm really embarrassed to say that I pulled my phone out and Googled what is a prolapsed uterus, and I was quite honestly horrified. I did not know a human body could do that, let alone what that would be like. I had a pure moment of selfish revulsion. And then I heard stories of women that have been living with this for years. And one story that particularly touched me was the story of a woman who wore 2 or 3 pairs of underwear every day just to keep her uterus from dragging on the ground while she was cooking. And she was subjected to humiliation and smell, and her husband said if he didn't get to have sex with her every night, he would leave her. And this poor woman endured, and she thought that this was life and this was the way that her life was going to be, and she had to stay for her community and for her children and to show up, and in a world that didn't see her, she was still there for that world. And when Mothers with a Heart for Ethiopia was able to come in and was able to offer this surgery and make it so that this woman's life was more bearable and so that she wasn't living in this constant agony, she told a story of how now she laughs and she dances and she enjoys her life. And the ability for a grassroots organization to be able to offer that kind of change to a woman's life is just so inspiring. And so that's why I donate to the prolapsed uterus surgery program.
For uterus prolapse treated outside mothers is important surgery because to pass urine for them is problem. Not properly they are passing the urine. Even to sit for them, it's outside. Already it's bleeding lesion. Their clothes very dirty. For them it's important surgery to keep clean. For them, no enough money, no soap, no easily to get water. That is very difficult for them, difficult life. So it's important surgery. If removed, they are well and they can live with their husband, new life. They can work. They are happy life. They can dance. They can happy life they can get. Otherwise, for them, it's very difficult life.
So many of you wait eagerly for news from Tesfa's shelter, one of our newest projects and the one with the greatest need. There are 92 children that find safety, security, and family at this shelter in Harar. Shelley's going to take you into that shelter with her next story.
When I think of Tesfa's shelter, I think of a safe refuge, a home, a very large family who take care of one another, protect each other, and who all understand how to press on in life after experiencing great suffering and pain. That kind of pain shapes you. Each of the 92 children in the shelter has such deep compassion and empathy for other kids living on the streets. They understand on a personal level how it feels to live while exposed to risk, going hungry, and constantly yearning for safety, protection, and love. The children have suggested to TESFA that if they could get bunk beds, they could have more children living in the shelter. This suggestion is coming from children who are already sharing 2 to each single mattress on the floor. Their empathy and compassion is inspirational. They aren't trying to protect and keep what they have to themselves. They want to share, and they want other children in need to know the safety and comfort they now know. We met with 2 sisters at the shelter who were also on the Girls Empowered Through Soccer teams and asked them about their lives before they started to live at the shelter. Their father had died, and their mother suffers from severe mental illness, which was left untreated due to a lack of understanding and acceptance of mental illness, and because of a lack of access to medical services or taxpayer-funded healthcare like we have in Canada. The family is very, very poor. The youngest girl left their home to go and beg on the streets at the age of 9 to try and help provide for the family. When she would have some money or food, she would go back home to give what she had to her family. Later, the older sister joined her on the streets because the mom was not able to provide for her. Their older brother continues to live with the mother because there is no one else to care for her, even though he suffers the brunt of her physical abuse resulting from her mental illness. I could clearly see on the girls' faces how worried they are about their mom and brother. They both long for their lives to be different. When I asked Tesfer later about the brother, he told me that he had lived at the shelter for a short time but left to go back and care for their mom. The girls told us that when they were living on the streets, they would often go for more than a day without anything to eat. And when they could find discarded food or ask the hotels or restaurants for leftovers, it would be very meager, and they would often be chased out, yelled at, or degraded because they were seen to be a nuisance. The police told them to stop begging for food and told the restaurant and hotel workers not to give them food. Imagine the desperation and the rejection they must have felt. They wanted to go to school, but often were too weak from not eating to attend. They lived with a few girls on the streets, and they always looked out for one another to help prevent being beaten and or raped. They spoke of some scary times when men would threaten them with sexual abuse, and it was clear the terror of those times is still so close to the surface. During the rainy season, they would constantly feel cold and were often in wet clothes. They got sick, seriously sick, and had no medical help. The rainy season was the time of year they dreaded the most. While they were living on the streets, the female coaches met them and invited them to join the Girls Empowered Through Soccer teams. The girls would go to practice even when they had not had enough to eat. The coaches would often provide them with food, knowing they were living on the streets. The girls made friends with the other girls on the teams. They wore the same uniform as the other girls, and they all had the same focus and goal, learning how to be an excellent soccer player and teammate. Even though the girls were living on the streets, the soccer team allowed them to be on equal footing with the other girls and gave them a sense of belonging, purpose, and strength. The girls smiled when they spoke of the friends they had made from the soccer teams and how their teammates would often bring them food or give them some money to help them. The girls spoke of how they see their coaches as family and how much they value their female coach for the life skills she teaches them. They feel they can talk to her about anything. They know she genuinely cares for them. They feel loved and valued. The girls lived on the streets for 3 years before they met Tesfa and began to live at his shelter. They would go back to their mom and brother to help in whatever way they could, washing their clothes and cleaning. They know suffering in a way that no child should ever know. They know worry like no child should ever know. The experience of these sisters is an example of the trauma the 92 children in the shelter have experienced in their young lives. Death of a parent or parents, abandonment, illness, poverty to an extent that a parent or parents cannot provide for the child, living on the streets, abuse, extreme hunger with no food security. Any one of these forms of trauma seems unthinkable for any child, yet so many of the 92 children in Tesfa's shelter have experienced more than one of these kinds of trauma. Living in the shelter is something the sisters are so thankful for. They think of Tesfa as a father and the children living there as family. They feel safe and they never need to worry about not having enough to eat. They are both smart girls, and now that they have enough to eat and are able to go to school regularly, they are ranking at the first and second in their classes. The difference in these sisters' lives now, they are living in the shelter and participating on the soccer teams, is absolutely profound. They no longer live in fear of being abused. They no longer have people treating them as if they are a nuisance and a problem. They no longer know the pain of not having anything to eat for a day or two at a time. They no longer try and sleep on the hard ground without any blankets to keep them warm or a tarp to keep them dry. The beauty of Tessa's shelter is not just in meeting basic needs, but giving these young people the foundation, the education, care, love, and hope to dream of and then build a better life.
First of all, we would like to give a wonderful greeting for Mother's Heart for Ethiopia organization. Thank you for your support, especially paying in last time the orphanage house rent for 1 year. So please support us by any means if you can. Me and the children will be very grateful. Thank you. Thank you very much in advance. We are praying for your health.
We would like to thank you, Mother's Heart for Ethiopia, for being with us in this difficult time. You are bringing light to our life. You make us happy, joyful, and thankful. God bless your work, life, and dream since you bless us by showing that you are with us. Now we have food, house, and sanitary materials, but all of those we have a family, mother and father, which is this organization. Shelly, her friends and co-workers, we love you more. You make our life more easier. Thank you. Again, we are praying for God to bless you and protect you.
When I am down and oh my soul so weary,
when troubles come and my heart burdened be,
then I am still and wait here
in the silence until you come and sit a while with me. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. There is no life without its hunger. Each restless heart so imperfectly.
But when you come and I am filled with wonder, sometimes I think I glimpse eternity.
You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on raise me up to more than I can be.
This year, Mothers with a Heart for Ethiopia celebrated our 10-year anniversary, and from the very beginning, this work has been inspired and driven by hearts of our volunteers, donors, and partners in Ethiopia. This work has been one of the greatest blessings of my life, and a big part of that is seeing people's hearts for others, seeing their hearts respond in action, and seeing the amazing results in women and children's lives in Ethiopia when the collective of many hearts come together in sharing their talents, time, and monetary resources. I have heard and seen with my own eyes the heart of Ethiopians helping the women and children in Ethiopia. The ladies who work at the WRAPS project talk not only about how thankful they are for the employment to make the washable, reusable pads, but also that they have such a sense of joy and purpose in knowing that they are a part of making it possible for girls to go to school while they have their periods. They know what it was like for them growing up and not having the menstrual products they needed. And they also know how important education is for girls, so they have a hope for the future. Their hearts for the girls shine through in every pad they make. The coaches for the Girls Empowered Through Soccer teams show heart to the 50 girls in ways that are selfless and so genuine. The coaches give of everything they have to help the girls feel that they have value, that they are powerful and capable, and that they can do anything they put their minds to. The coaches purchase and distribute the monthly food support to 13 families who have the greatest need of the girls on the teams. One of the girls on the teams who is receiving monthly food support told me that before we started to provide the funds for their food, she would often fight with her grandma because she did not have enough to eat. Her parents had both died, and her grandmother is not able to work. She was at the top of her class, even though many days she had a hard time concentrating because she was chronically hungry. But now that she has enough food, she doesn't fight with her grandmother, and her average has gone up by 10%. The heart of our donors who give financially and the heart of the coaches have allowed this girl and so many more in the 13 families to know food security. Dr. Mark and Dr. Nate put their hearts in action every time they meet with a woman, and I've seen the women respond with their hearts of gratitude for the new lease on life they have been given through the repair of their prolapsed uterus. The ripple effect of that heart is shown in the women who now go and tell other women who they see struggling about the availability of the surgery and encourage them to go to the Soto Christian Hospital for help. When 13 of the children at Tesfa Shelter had COVID and needed to be in the hospital, within 2 days, our donors gave enough to pay for all the medical bills and supplies needed to care for the children who were sick and to protect the other children at the shelter. I see in the eyes of our volunteers and donors their heart for the women and children. When they speak of stories that have touched them, their heart shines through, often with a smile or with tears. The young men in our group home now volunteer to help others as a result of the compassion and love they have been shown by their sponsors and our organization. They now give of their time and heart to orphan children and the elderly. My son in Ethiopia, Talahun, is now the executive director of an organization called Simple Act of Kindness, in which every day he is showing his heart and has attracted over 100 volunteers to share their heart and care for single women and children in need in their country. Tesfa has wrapped his heart around every one of the 92 children in his shelter, and they call him Father. You've heard the story of a march and of the 2 sisters in Tesfa's shelter. It can seem overwhelming to think of the needs of the women and children in Ethiopia. You may be asking yourself, can my donation make any difference when there are so many that need help? I can tell you, because I have seen firsthand over and over again through my own financial donations and the gifts our donors have given, that when you choose to respond with your heart and give of your money, you are making the world a difference for those your money has supported. We cannot change the world, but we can change the world for those we support. Hearts touching hearts halfway across the globe. That is what our work is doing, and I'm asking you to be a part of this heart work and to give what you can, so you too can know the joy of sharing what we are so privileged to have here in Canada.
Wow, thank you so much for joining us on this roller coaster of emotion over the last hour. We're so grateful for each and every one of you and your help to keep us driving forward, making change, and lifting up those who need it. You can easily make a donation on our website, motherswithaheartforethiopia.com, or find our mailing address to mail a check there. And a reminder, of course, about our excellent online silent auction. Don't miss the opportunity to win some beautiful items and support our 7 projects. The auction begins October 28th and ends November 1st at 8 p.m. The link is right on our website. Of course, we have so many people to thank before we let you go. A huge thank you to Dave of River Valley Studio and Bob of Armor Pro Audiovisual. Without these 2 men, our virtual Gems and Java programs would not be possible. A huge thank you to all of our sponsors, especially our presenting sponsor, Green Private Wealth Council, and our media sponsor, Heart FM. Please take a moment to recognize these wonderful companies and individuals if you can. Please patronize their businesses and show your support. Thank you to the London Jazz Sextet for providing such incredible music for our jazz receptions, which will continue in just a minute. And all of our other musicians as well, we're so grateful. A final huge shout out to the many donors, supporters, and volunteers who have made this show what it is. It is a huge labor of love, and we hope you have enjoyed learning about it and all of the fulfilling and heartwarming work that we do. Thank you so much.
I never see such kind of things. I want to say thanks a lot to the volunteers, to all people from Canada that work for us, and you show us your love these incredible things. Buse.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for
things for us.
All things.
Thank you for everything here, and I say thank you and amasaginalo.
Thank you, Shani. Thank you, Mother Earth for Ethiopia. You are the reason of my children's happiness. Thank you so much for supporting us. I say thank you. Thank you.
you.